If you are running, then they assume you are part of their target. So it was to look at the police, they are standing idle. They couldn't do anything initially. They couldn't initially. Until here where they tried to stop the guys, they ran over them. And you can see some of the police even moving around. See some standing up there doing videography.
Right.
You couldn't blame them. I think that, like Professor Enin said, the police were not armed. And basically, if they attempted to do anything, a lot of them could have been injured. But let me come to why we are even going through this. Something. If there was even an incident at the polling station, I would be a bit more calmer. There was no incidents. There was nothing happening at the polling station the time these guys came in. In fact, they are the ones who came in and brought this. But the NDC are not learning. The reason why I'm saying they are not learning is this. There was Etiwa, there was Talensi, there was Akwetia, there was Triponi. And usually I'm saying this to the Gen Zs and some of the people who are now following politics. West. And there was Ayawaso West. Today when we speak about these things, everybody refers to Ayawaso West as if that was a first. And then as if it was something that came out of nowhere and the NPP brought it. Before Ayawaso West, there had been 4 bloodsheds. In fact, Talensi, there was an instruction by the National Security to stop every vehicle and search. Everybody on this call recollect. At some point, they found guns and ammunition in the vehicle of the national chairman then. To date, nothing happened. The women organizer of the National Democratic Congress in Etiwa drove through a group of NPP supporters. Some are maimed and incapacitated till today. Nothing happened. Akwetia, Honorable Damboche's vehicle was shot into. His driver was hit. He was rushed to the hospital fighting for his life. Baba Jamal, at that time, vehicles ran over people in Akwetia. Nothing was done about it. You see, it is as a result of some of these things that for whatever reason, some of the political parties at the time, after Etiwa, decided to begin to take the protection of their own people into their hands.
Jambuedu made this point.
We cannot run away from that fact. We can't. We can't pretend that is it. We cannot solve the problems if we don't go into these things. So if you recollect, something happened in Etiwa. Etiwa was the first time in the history of the NPP that we stood up for ourselves. And you recollect the famous Yachiro Mubibi Kitwebi. And then since Etiwa, the NPP began to protect ourselves. Let me tell you, as of 2019, that the anti-vigilantism law was passed. No political party had the kind of strength that the NPP had when it comes to what they did in Ablekuma North. No political party. We had the strength. We could do 3 times what they did in Ablekuma North as of 2019. But the president and the party then realized that that wasn't the way to go. Yes, we suffered it in 4 elections before we decided to own our own lives and our own protections. But they felt that it was time for us to put a stop to it.
But the president was handed an opportunity through the Ayawaso West Rerun Commission. And
even that still give Akufo-Addo some credit. Because for 4 by-elections where there were bloodshed, we never saw the kind of public inquiry and commission that we saw.
But the public inquiry must have a purpose. I'm just making whitewashes.
It wasn't entirely whitewash. Maybe you can raise that there are other aspects that has not been implemented. But people were held responsible. Colonel Epoku and co suffered consequences for the actions. So you can legitimately raise concerns about certain aspects, but we cannot run away from the fact that that was the first time in the history of this. And I'm saying this for the benefit of the young people who are only hearing Ayawaso West, Ayawaso West. I'm saying that before Ayawaso West, there was a Talensi, there was a Tripoli, there was a Tiwa, there was a Akwetia under an NDC government. That led to the NPP now starting to protect ourselves. Fast forward, the same NPP realized that no, this is not the way to go. Let's pass laws that will ensure that we did. And we passed the law to disband something that we were ahead of when it comes to, protecting or whatever you call it. But with what I saw with my eyes in Ablekuma, and with what I have seen public officials, including some judge, a cabinet minister, saying that they are now about to start, I think the NPP has legal committee, the NPP has elections committee, the NPP has communications committee. It is fair that the NPP quickly reorganizes itself and gets self-protection committee.
Well, the AM show is always proudly sponsored by Whaley Properties, and we provide quality housing at affordable costs and with flexible payment options. Let's move on to our big stories now. We will be forced to protect ourselves if the security services cannot protect us. Frustration and anger from the NPP following the violence in the Ablekuma North Rerun, as some NPP executives became victims of violence that ensued in the elections. What does this portend for upcoming by-elections in Akwatia, and what are the lessons to be drawn from what happened? Well, we have a second leg of this discussion we'll be having later, but I have with me in the studio Shamima Muslim. She is Deputy Government Spokesperson and someone who once sat where I'm sitting, you know, in a different house. Shamima, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
Yeah, you're looking
How
beautiful.
is the work?
The work, you know, we are trying to take it from where you left it, you know, to the next level. So let's see how it goes, but we'll still count on the guidance.
Yeah, you know? I know. Sometimes I don't miss it at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but well, I think it's easier to be here than here.
Okay,
That's the only light side. It's easier to be here than here.
I get it.
To ask the questions than to answer them. I'm now seeing that it's not that easy answering the questions.
Okay.
But we are happy to be here.
Nice one.
I think that Ghana has a lot to be proud about. I mean, within the sub-region, the stability we've managed to engineer since the Fourth Republic is commendable. And I think it continues to elevate Ghana, you know, among the Committee of Nations as an example of a working government, irrespective of our challenges. You know, even with the subject matter we're speaking about, election violence, if you look generally from 1992 to today, we have largely had successful elections.
Okay.
We've had very peaceful transfer, you know, of power from one democratically elected, you know, government to another, irrespective of the pockets of, you know, violence that we agree we need to begin to act rather than lament and pretend that we are doing something about it. So we've done well as a country, and I think that there's still great room for improvement and really elevating Ghana as that black star of Africa. But every Ghanaian must be proud to be, you know, a member of this country that can fight fiercely and still gather around the room and push for progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me introduce my guest on Zoom. We have Dr. John Osai Kwapong. He is a CDD fellow. And also joining on Zoom is Dr. Kwabena Kennedy, a physician and a political activist. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Let me start with you, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. You've been part of this process for quite a long time. I'm sure you monitored process of, you know, processes involved in the Ablekuma North by-election on Friday. What did you make of what happened on that day?
Good morning to your viewers, and good morning to Shamima. Haven't seen her for some time.
For so long, Doug. Good morning.
Respectfully, I don't share Shamima's pride in our country.
Okay.
The country I saw at Ablekuma North and the country I saw during the National Day of Thanksgiving do not seem to me to be the same country. Yes, we can be proud when we look at the forest of our country, but within that forest, there are a lot of crises. Yes, we have been able to largely have transfer of power from government to government during elections, but let us not forget that we got to Ablekuma North because after elections, somehow the national police repeatedly failed to provide security, so there will be collation. So in the long run, about 3 polling stations just needing collation ballooned into 19 or so, where there had to be new elections. And the police stood by unconcerned while people were assaulted, both politicians and media personnel. Some people had to run, and I noticed that you played a video of miracles in which he was talking about going as far back as Etiwa. He's going as far back as Etiwa. I can go as far back as Kumbungu. NPP people know about the Kumbungu 5. And then there is Issa Mobila. But talking about political violence in our country, it goes as far back as the Matemehoten. That is why we have the names like Bafo, because somebody got stabbed and all that. Every government is responsible for security. What happened at Ablekuma North is something for which there should be no defense from the likes of Shamima Muslim, whom I like very much. There should be apologies.
But she hasn't defended what happened. She was only giving her remarks about how Ghana, how well we are doing. She has not defended it. Yeah,
that's quite unfair.
Her opening remarks should have had apology. I am surprised I have not heard from the president.
Well, Doc, you might want to. I mean, she has not come onto the topic itself. She hasn't. She only spoke about how well Ghana is doing in spite of our challenges.
Well, okay, so maybe I
you have to spare
wait for.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, that what we saw is something for which there ought to be apologies.
Okay.
Ghanaian citizens got up to go and vote. Media personnel got up to go and cover an election. And we saw assault. In actual fact, nobody ought to be telling us about investigations. There ought to be arrests. We saw a video in which somebody dived at a woman like he was a kung fu fighter. We saw policemen standing by while people were assaulted. Some of them walked away. And if the national police cannot protect people for a handful of polling stations, how are they going to protect us during national elections? And by the way, an eye for an eye will leave everybody blind. These going back to, there was talency and this, and we also decided to protect ourselves. And there was Ayawa Sugon. All sides have some truths. But is this how to build a nation? Was this the nation we saw at the prayer breakfast? What is the president doing about this? I saw a social media post in which the vice president talked about, we need to do a little better. No, we need to stop talking and do things. The government is responsible for security. I do not think it is progress for Ghana for the NPP to go and form a vigilante group or an Azuka boys or whatever. I go far back in the NPP, and people don't know it. The Azuka boys used to be NPP boys. I have a batakari sent me by Azoka as a gift. I go far back. When you cut your tongue and chew it, you are not chewing meat. This thing we are doing is inconsistent with national development and reconciliation. And I'm disappointed that we haven't heard anything from the president. There haven't been arrests. We couldn't do collation. It is really demoralizing as a Ghanaian patriot.
And if it's demoralizing, what do you think must change about the way we do our things?
What must change is that governments must understand that they are not partisans fighting for power anymore. They are responsible for security in the state. People ought to be able to get up at home, go to vote and go home peacefully. We need to count our votes, and no drop of Ghanaian blood is worth anybody's ambitions. In the same way, in 2020, we lost fellow citizens. In 2024, we lost fellow citizens. And I'm tired of the hypocrisy. Look at Dr. Baumia waxing eloquent about how the government ought to do something. Where was he during Ayawaso Ugon, when other people were being beaten and slapped and he was the sitting vice president? Where was he when during an NPP primary, one of the contestant supporters lost an eye? This is the kind of double standard that is destroying this country. There's too much hypocrisy in this country on all sides.
Well, let me bring in Dr. John Osai-Kwapong here. Doc, you've said that it is time for key institutions which have the responsibility for sustaining the peace and security of the country, as well as for ensuring the integrity of elections, to develop a comprehensive anti-electoral violence plan before the, unquote, isolated, unquote, incident get out of hand. What must be in this particular plan you are talking about?
Good morning. Thank you very much. So, this plan that I was writing about is driven by this concern I have that any time that generally an election goes well, although we experience some electoral violence, we have a habit of describing it as isolated incidents of violence. My worry is that one day, if we are not careful, the cumulative effect of these quote unquote isolated incidents of violence will become normalized and a part of our election. So I'm thinking there's the police, there's the Electoral Commission, there's the Peace Council, our political parties. Is there a way of building some consensus around how we protect the ballot, right? Can we come up with some reasonable rules around who is supposed to be at a polling station or not? Who is supposed to be at a collation center or not? How do we enforce issues of security, at the polling stations, at the collation centers? And it would take the involvement of all of these key actors to be able to come to some agreement and a recognition that this can continue. I mean, we are looking at this, and all I'm thinking of is Akwetia is next, right? Yeah. And if you listen to some of the rhetoric, it's as though some believe that Akwetia should be their opportunity to also dish back in equal measure what happened at Ablekuma North. But we can't keep continuing like that.
Okay, but you've also suggested that, the IPAC should forge a consensus around protocols for coalition centers to reduce tensions and prospect of chaos. Don't you already have, laid down procedures on how the coalition must go? And if we want to have protocols, what must these really be in actuals?
So yes, we have rules around how we collate these results and declare winners. But you also witnessed that you have political parties, their supporters amassing at these collation centers, sometimes being disruptive. In all of this, you also cannot absolve the political parties, right? Sometimes being disruptive. So you start saying to yourself, do we need all of these people at the collation centers during the counting and declaration of results, whether at the polling station or at the collation center? You don't, because everybody is there inflamed by their partisan, sentiments, and you can only see where it gets to. Some of the scenes from 2024 at some of these collation centers where did not speak well, in terms of the integrity, of our election. And so that's why, for me, there comes to a point where, again, we have to go back, rethink, take a second look at the rules and say, perhaps we need to tighten protocols around what happens or does not happen at the collation centers. And the other thing I also want to add is, I also get a little surprised at the security and law enforcement. And I say that because if I think of a state that is easily able to mobilize its forces to quell demonstrations, for example, right, that it was a little baffling just to see what appeared to be its inability to push back against some of the things that we were seeing at Ablekuma North.
So in general, I have to let you go, but in general, what lessons do you think the country should pick from this as we head or prepare for Akwetia?
For me, the key lesson is electoral violence should have no place in our elections. And if our two main political parties are going to keep drawing us back into who did what, when, and how in some past election, then unfortunately, I get afraid that this will continue. But there has to come a point where leadership, leaders in both parties should be able to rise up and say, okay, enough is enough. We need to chart a new path forward. This is an election. We don't have to maim, kill, beat each other, over elections. Yes, we always say that elections have consequences, but these are not the kinds of consequences that we should be having as a result of, election. I mean, what is so difficult about go vote, go home, come back, watch the count, have a winner declared, go home and celebrate your victory, right? It shouldn't degenerate into some of these unfortunate scenes.
Isn't the police service the one with the biggest responsibility in all of this to try and bring to book the people we saw in the video manhandling other people in this rerun?
I agree. I mean, identifying them exactly, bringing them to book and swiftly punishing them, I think would also help hopefully serve as a deterrent to others who may be having their own ideas about what to do in another election. Yes, but the police does have a responsibility in ensuring that the perpetrators of this violence are punished.
Okay. Doc, I'm grateful to you, and we're grateful that you could join us this morning. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong is a CDD fellow and the project director for Democracy Project there. Let me come in studio where Shamima Muslim is with me here. Shamima, why hasn't government issued an apology in all of this since Friday?
See, when we frame conversations like that with such openness, and as Dr. Arthur Kennedy also sought to do in the beginning, and then later on redeemed himself by conceding, where the challenge with regards to this particular thing is, then we can make some progress. Okay. Because he did say that an eye for an eye will leave everyone blind. But who should be blinded while someone has the eye? So they are very deep issues. And just listening to Dr. Kwapong, I would like to throw a challenge. Some time ago, I read a book, what's about participatory development and the disparity between global North and South. Ladles in the global soup kitchen, whose reality counts. Okay. So here, let's say ladles in the political violence soup kitchen, whose reality should count. You played, before we started the program, you played Miracles Abuaje's litany of examples. I wouldn't have wanted to go down that lane because if it's about examples, we can all give examples even as far as 1966. When the forebears of Miracles' political, tradition started throwing bombs against their political opponents. It didn't stop there. At bomb throwing in 1966.
Which one?
Which one? What?
Yeah.
The bomb. The Kulungungu bomb throwing. Several attempts were made to the life of, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and eventually, with the connivance of CIA, Ghana's forward march to development was curtailed as a result of that 1966 intervention. Dr. Kwapong is a researcher, and they would help all of us because we are now in a place where there is no trust, where NDC has no trust that in matters of elections, vigilance on their part, and which vigilance sometimes, unfortunately, leads to these violent outbreaks.
Vigilance on the part of the political parties?
On the political parties. Because we have all agreed that political parties have mobilized vigilante groups in the past. They have used individuals to also protect the ballot. Sometimes those activities lead to violence. I as a mother of 2 boys, 2 girls, would never encourage my son to go and put himself in the line of risk that could lead to his death. I wouldn't do that as a person And I think political parties ought not to organize around, vehicles that would threaten the lives of their own members and also, other members of the general public, including lives of opponents. I would not accede to that kind of things. But this is the reality which we can all not run away from.
But the vigilantism
what
act of
I am worried about,
do away with that. Not so.
Which one?
The vigilantism and other related
it's supposed to disband.
Yes.
And we have seen to a large extent, you can't point out macho groups, vigilante groups again, as we really saw them, at the height of which we saw some of them actually besiege a court premise, to take someone who was in court being taken through due process. We've seen a lot of things before. What I am saying is that to the extent that you can't trust NPP, NDC, or political parties to allow institutions to work in and of themselves, especially around issues of elections, individuals like Dr. Kopong, who are in research institutions, cannot and should not make claims that all of them have been doing this, because they do research. They provide statistics. Statistics give us an inkling into who must carry a certain disproportionate burden of responsibility or blame, even as we are trying to arrive at a conclusion.
Okay.
These researchers, from some of the ones that I've read, in the 2020-2024 elections, have cited unprecedented numbers of, and I'm just going to read them out to you, incidents. And that is particularly during 2020 and 24 general elections since 1992. These periods that had former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the New Patriotic Party, because Miracles tried to create an impression that violence was, predominant in periods of NDC government. But obviously, the statistics do not bear him out. And he's literally forcing us to go into this, litany of examples. Look,
in 2024,
there were reported 76 incidents of electoral violence between November and December 2024, including property destruction, injuries, fatalities. The number of deaths, as you yourself have reported on this platform, was at least 6 people.
In 2024?
In 2024, just last year's elections. And I'll give you, because there are names to these individuals. Let's go to 2020 elections. 8 fatalities.
Okay.
As we speak today, justice has not been done for the families of those that were shot.
So who died in 2024?
These were the individuals. You've reported these.
I remember 2020.
Yes.
2020.
2020, we had 8 fatalities, and the 64% of Ghanaians believe that the 2020 election, though generally free and fair, had major fatalities. 8 people. Now you're asking who? In Northern Region, in the 2024 election, in Northern Region, 1 person was killed in a shooting incident in Nyankpala. You know that.
Yeah.
In Central Region, Ewutu Senya East constituency, a shooting incident claimed 1 life with 3 individuals shot. Reportedly, they were NDC supporters. You also even know that the person of Hawa Kumsim, who wielded a gun, moved out a gun and shot a gun, and there were casualties in the Kaswa area. Until date, she has not been held accountable. So when Hawa Kumsin is seen around an election area, it will increase tensions and people will wonder why she's there, and it will generate the tension. Unfortunate, as a woman, I cannot, with any clear conscience, say it is acceptable that she was beaten the way that she was beaten. Personally, I cannot say that. But we cannot also now try to discount why she was there, why she had access to the perimeter, why she held a pepper spray, why she sprayed out a pepper spray at a point that security agencies had cordoned her and were providing her protection. If you in Savannah region.
But why would the young men apprehend her the way they did?
I don't know what was happening in the minds of the young men. I was not there. And I always say this, that sometimes until you become a victim of violence, you know, I always used to condemn, and I still condemn, mob action. But when you hear people share their experiences of armed attacks, armed robbery, theft against them, you can only understand the extent of their pain until you go through a certain process, you know, and experience a certain violence against your person. You may not understand why and how people respond the way that they do. You can only encourage people to allow the rule of law to always precede, you know, personal feelings of hurts and anger.
So I like your use of rule of law.
Because, for example,
why didn't the young men?
That's what I'm telling you. That I am not. I haven't experienced what they have experienced in the line of fire.
What I want to find out is, the lady was there, harmless. If they wanted her removed from the polling station,
but that is what you and I cannot say, because you and I were not on the ground. So you and I cannot. So it is only the security agencies and investigation that can really bring us the full picture of what triggered the unfortunate action that we seen. And sometimes I think this society does not want candor, because when you attempt to be honest to a situation, you are rather misrepresented, and you know the public will get to you. So again, the issue about the double standards of our society, when people speak from their heart, instead of you hearing them from what they are trying to communicate, you try to put them on a defensive and try to either get them to justify their actions so that you can hang them at the gallows. And, you know, there is an unwillingness to perhaps understand where these reactions and actions come from so we can get to the root base. At the heart and the core of it is mistrust. Mistrust that has been engineered because of verifiable actions. You see, when the New Patriotic Party, when they were in government, were trying to put up the Electoral Commission and nominated individuals as commission members, all right-thinking Ghanaians, including Dr. Kwapong, had cause for concern. CDD that he works with petitioned the president to reconsider the nomination of non-New Patriotic Party actors as members of the commission. In a partisan society like ours, every action would be scrutinized because there is no trust. So coming back to finishing up with these statistics, and we'll go on to the way forward and how we must resolve this matter. Because Ghana is the only country that we have in. I'm living here. Dr. Arthur Kennedy is abroad. So I think that in terms of who wants Ghana to succeed and work, I think all of us may have. But those who are living in this country, having their children, raising their children in this country, cannot want this country to go up in flames.
He also has family members. He also has family members here.
I'm saying that right now he's living
but he has
in
family
America.
members here.
I am living here.
Yeah.
I have family members abroad, but I'm living here. My 4 children were born here. They are being, you know, grown here. I'm not discounting his advocacy. I'm just saying that just because of the point he made, I am fiercely, you know, positive about our country.
Okay.
Even though we are worried about some of these incidents, which I made clean. Let me just wrap up. Ewutu Senya, 1 person died, 2 persons were critically injured. Savannah region, Damango constituency, 1 person died.
Right?
Yes,
we get it.
In 2024.
But this is 2025.
So this is not the time. Ahafuano West constituency, Kwesi Nimo, 33, died from gunshot wounds after confrontation at the Electoral Commission. Offensive of 2 deaths were reported under the leadership of New Patriotic Party, as Miracle would want us. Ayawaso West Wogon, he had cause to single out Honorable Sam George for mention, but he was not concerned that till date, the assault against Sam George has not received justice under their watch.
But does that explain
the arrogance with which they communicate these positions that they do not have any, moral authority is what it's what is troubling. If you agree there's a problem, let's think about how we solve the problem.
We'll get into it, but Shamima, does that explain why, till today, I mean, we've not had government coming out to speak on what happened?
Very erroneous, because on the morning of the voting, my boss, myself, and the vice president were at the swearing-in ceremony of the newly elected GJA executives. In fact, after the vice president spoke, she had to leave for another event. I also had to leave because we had a program at the presidency, but my boss stayed. And whilst he was there, the first reports of attacks against journalists broke.
Yeah.
And in his speech, he condemned those actions and called on the security agencies to act with dispatch. You reported almost swiftly. The Ghana Police Service issued a statement. They found the officer in question, removed him from the operation, and interdicted him and referred him to the professional department, conduct department. That was a swift action. The vice president, you do know that the president is not in the jurisdiction, right?
Okay.
But the vice president, who is acting president, issued a statement more than we even ever had from the previous administration.
After all the processes?
Never had a comment to make about Ayawaso West.
After all the processes.
And you must put those questions to them. Because when we, as a government, take steps that are distinctively different from what we have seen in the previous administration, you recognize that as being progress.
So we're saying that after the response from your minister and after the vice president's speech, we saw the level of
even
violence
I spoke on media. I spoke on your channel because Max was
you've condemned.
Of course.
Okay.
Those actions are condemnable.
Okay.
I'm saying that nobody who sits and watches the visuals would say that this is how a democracy should look like. Especially after we've done multiple elections.
Okay.
We are 33 years on. We have sustained this fourth democratic dispensation. 33 good years on. We have largely had free and fair elections, save for all of these instances. And I hear Kwapon when he says that, yes, there may be isolated incidents because the generality of the process has sustained thus far, and there have been transfers of power. There's not been any rude military intervention since 1992. So something is being done right. But why are we not progressing is because of the weakening of our institutions that CDD, Afrobarometer continues to say. Impunity is taking a hold.
Okay.
And how do we resolve impunity? We must strengthen the institutions. So the security agencies are the ones cloaked with powers of ensuring law and order. And so, for example, if a political party believes that they must personally be vigilant to ensure that they are not cheated, it behoves on security agencies to conduct the process in a manner that prevents any triggering of any action or preparation that any political party actor has taken in case there is an attempt to breach the process against them. The security agencies hold a huge responsibility. But also the judiciary. Because cases that have come to court, if you don't determine those cases, if you don't jail people who have been found in breach, impunity will continue to what? Thrive.
Okay, I hear. Let me bring in Dr. Alpha Kennedy. Doc, you've listened to Shamima. Now, she makes the point that, look, the security has that responsibility to ensure that even though political parties would want to protect themselves, but it doesn't degenerate. I'm sure do you agree with her on that point?
Yeah, that's a valid point, but respectfully, Shamima, I mean, if we're talking about history, some of those who were tried for the Kolongugu bomb were CPP members. So let's be accurate when we are talking about history. I think that all those, they did this and we did
compromised
that.
by.
I am just saying that we are here now. We have a government. We have security forces. I agree with Shamima that Nanado's conduct was reprehensible during the 2020 election. I think the security forces were derelict, that fellow citizens died, and it took a new president to direct them to investigate that. But all that notwithstanding, we are here. I think the elephant in the room, to pardon my pun, is that the security forces have been politicized. When the NPP is in power, they partner the NPP to brutalize the opposition. When the NDC is in power, they partner the NDC to brutalize people. We need independent professional security forces. If the security forces had done their job, this by-election would not even have been necessary. There was a vote in 2024. The security forces were given 3-4 opportunities to provide security, so there will be coalition, and they couldn't do it. That's why we had to vote. Let's call out the security forces. And by the way, Shamima, there are people who live in Ghana full-time and are raising their children who are destroying the country. And there are people who live elsewhere who are trying to build the country. I mean, Mobutu Sese Seko never lived abroad while destroying Zaire. And we can cite examples in Ghana too. So I think that the question about whether you are a true Ghanaian patriot or not does not depend on where you live. It depends on whether Ghana lives in you.
I agree.
Doc, but how do we improve on our coalition to avoid the happenings of 2024, which resulted in this idea of rerun? It's because we couldn't complete a coalition in some of these polling stations. How do we really improve on that process?
Professionalize the security services. The security services have their finger in the wind, looking at where the political winds are blowing. So all of a sudden in 2024, like all of us, they saw the results, they knew who was coming into power, and all of a sudden they started acting in ways that would in effect further their ambitions. The truth of the matter is that whenever there are changes in the security services leadership, when government changes, and we tell the security forces to do their work professionally, they don't believe us. We need to insulate the security services from political changes and politicians. And I agree with a lot of the sentiments Shamima said, but if the security forces cannot be professionalized, Etiwa will rehash what happened, future by-elections will rehash what happened. It is a disgrace that in 2020, 8 or so of our fellow citizens died and nobody was charged. It is a disgrace that in 2024 people died. And we need to condemn that and call the security services to do. In most other jurisdictions, the head of the police will be fired for what happened at Ablekuma. But in Ghana, nothing will happen. That's our problem.
So you believe that the IGP must be fired?
Because he couldn't provide security for collation, he couldn't provide security at Ablekuma. Regardless of what else we do, the police failed, and there ought to be accountability.
I mean, Shamima's point is that Yohunu was not IGP when they couldn't call it, but during Yohunu's time, there was also that call for the security police to provide security. That wasn't done. So yes,
they should. If you also look at the...
So if you say they should, are you agreeing to the call for him to be sacked?
For
IGP, yes.
I don't agree to that.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Kennedy. Let me go back to Dr. Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy, do you, from the clarification from Shamima, do you still stand by your point that Yohunu should be fired?
When did Yohunu take over?
I don't know about fire, but there ought to be accountability. I am just saying that the same way that there's an IGP and 8 Ghanaians died during elections, and it takes a new president to order investigation. This is not on. Okay. And the same way, there was this new IGP we couldn't provide security for collation, which is why we are voting. And during the voting, we see these things. So where is the accountability for the police? There ought to be some accountability.
Shamima.
And that accountability will come from government.
Okay.
Well, that accountability we're already seeing signs of. We're
already
seeing signs of a responsive police service that swiftly issued a statement, taking action against an officer caught on camera assaulting a female journalist. Unwarranted, uncalled for, disproportionate, unjustified action. And investigations are ongoing. Swift action has been taken through a statement by the same police service announcing that they're going to also further investigate this matter. What we must call for,
we have the faces of these young men on camera.
But so what does investigation mean? Investigation means that they must locate, identify, and take custody of them.
This happened on Friday, no arrest till today.
Well, so let's give the police an opportunity to explain themselves. But I think that we have seen a sign that we haven't seen before. Look, we are resetting our institutions. And as we are resetting our institutions, we must know that the process of re-engineering is not an event. It is a process that requires a certain change of mindset, a certain consistency, because even they, the police, must get to a point where they believe that if they act professionally in trying to enforce law and order, that it's not going to cost them. They must come to that point where they believe that. And that comes to the politicians, that we must also be in a position where we are able to allow the security agencies to feel that they can trust the system, that the system expects them to do right and be professional at all times without consequence. That is not an event. And if we pretend that is an event, what we need is a commitment of leadership that is showing example of good behavior and intention to depart away from the norm. But mind you also that political parties that form government have their base. And if you're a father and your child was killed, your child was maimed, your child was hurt because your child was out there to support you, until date you have no justice. You see, because sometimes it's not the political leaders that will tell their members to go and act in a certain way. Like I told you, we even heard reports that one of the people seen around the vicinity was a brother to the Kaswa victim who died as a result of an election, in the Honorable Hawa Kumsin's constituency. So how do you, as political leadership, manage everybody's emotion when you have not walked a mile in their shoe? You have not. So Hannah Bisu, for instance, when she expressed her opinion, many of you disagreed with her. But those who also have been victims of political violence, they would also say that they reserve the right to say that I don't empathize with this person. So there will always be individuals within families who would have disproportionate experience.
I get it.
Those experiences will shape their behavior, will shape their attitude, will shape their mindset. What you must look out for is what is the dominant view within that family. The dominant view in the family of His Excellency's government is not that of lawlessness.
Wouldn't it be a cycle?
Yes.
If we say people have certain sentiment from their experiences and therefore would want to pay back. For example, you saw someone being beaten live on camera. If the family members of that man decide to also visit same in another time.
And they may. So what are we doing? What stops it is that reasonable people within all of our two families, that we need to raise a group of, an era of leadership within political families that are truthful and trustworthy, that when they make commitments, they will work towards enforcing those commitments. That means not a complete avoidance of disruptions, but how you respond when those disruptions happen, how we go back into the family and speak to the individuals. Do you understand it? And I can tell you that within the family of the NPP, when there are excesses, we are on pages, we ourselves criticize ourselves, but perhaps we will not come and sit in the public and do it and make the NPP now come and sit like miracles, behaving like they sit on a moral high horse when their hands are stained with blood. Never in the history of our elections have we seen the numbers of citizens who have been killed like we have seen under the 2 terms of the previous administration. That Miracles himself was a member of.
That is on them. But when that is on them. But when your government also oversees what happened in Ablekuma, you should be worried and should see what must be done.
Framing to say that the government oversees. The government did not endorse an outbreak of violence in an election. And you see, the
but you are blaming the death on the NPP's administration.
Don't, because they also, what did he say? You played his voice.
Yes.
I came here with a mindset to come and talk about how we move this country forward.
Yeah.
You spent almost 5 minutes rehashing his erroneous, one-sided view about what is the problem, those ladles. He said the ladles in our political violence
and you've responded.
Are ladles of the NDC
you've responded.
Alone. And I responded to that.
You've responded.
And I'm responding that as a government, did you ever hear the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, condemn Ayawaso West Wogon? Did you hear him call on the security agencies?
Shamima,
but have you not heard our Vice President?
We have.
Have you?
And I'm saying that
you have heard our Vice
you spoke
President.
about trust.
Right, great.
You spoke about trust.
Yes.
Now, if people beat people like the way they beat the man, and the police is not able to pick anybody, I mean, because they were there, present there when this was happening, how does that engender trust such that
it must engender trust to the extent that because the police is an independent institution. I have just told you how impunity thrives when security agencies, when the judiciary, when governments of the day themselves are complicit in their actions. Fifi Kwete, General Secretary of the NDC, has spoken, has assured and told members of the NDC that we're a party in government. Remember, the NPP has a lot to lose. We, as a party in government, we need to protect the society and ensure law and order. We have a lot to lose if we allow the NPP to provoke reactions that will what? Cost us a certain peace. Fifi Kwete, the defense minister, Omani Buama, was on site. What do they call it? The interior minister was on site.
But the speeches do not want to arrest.
Calm, but you see, are you discounting the optics of key members of an administration immediately after those visuals came to their attention?
I'm only worried.
Are you discounting
I'm only worried.
Is there value in those visuals? Because you haven't seen there's value in those visuals.
Yes.
Thank you for agreeing that there's value.
But I'm saying
now
that
we
when
cannot.
This happens,
Interior Minister cannot go and arrest.
Oh yes.
So
that's why I didn't bring in the Interior Minister.
We expect the security agencies to do their work, because even from what they themselves saw, where Bande, our
Deputy General Secretary, yes,
who went there to escalate. You know Bande, right?
Yes.
You know he's a good soldier man, right?
Yes.
He didn't go there to escalate. He could have chosen to go and escalate. But I'm saying the leadership matters. And in this matter, we have seen a different kind of leadership, distinct from the leadership we've seen in the past.
Because of statements.
Where that impudence, where those things happened and leaders were silent. Because when you're silent, you don't offer leadership to your members.
That government didn't speak about the 2020 deaths. Is that what you're saying?
That's what?
That government didn't speak about the happenings of 2020.
What did they say? Tell me. You even had, what did they call it? Something had to add Ayawaso West Wogon before Miracle said, and non-committedly, and Ayawaso West Wogon. Ayawaso West Wogon, where we saw armed men with masks besiege an election and destroy and assault members of parliament. Please, this is not what I wanted to do, but the tone of the conversation was set when Miracle's voice was played back, and then, of course, Honorable Arthur Kennedy also came in, but to be fair, Honorable Arthur Kennedy eventually did say that all sides must have questions to answer. And I am happy that the difference we are showing is that leadership at the highest level have shown commitment, have shown concern, have gone out. Mustafa Gbande de-escalated, took Honorable Hawa Kumsing away and ensured that his vehicle took her. I think those are actions to be commended. And when foot soldiers see this, they know that please be calm, do not escalate. And I will also repeat it to all our foot soldiers and our grassroots. There are many people who are hurt because of the pain that their families have gone through, the loss of loved ones who have remained uncompensated, and justice have yet to come to those people. But His Excellency John Dramani Mahama continues to assure all of us that as far as he is president and remains president, Ghana would be peaceful. Whereas Ghana is peaceful, he is also going to ensure that the agencies and the institutions cloaked with powers to act to bring justice to people who have been unfairly done by, the same sometimes instruments of the state and other individuals will be made to face the full rigors of the law. But please, let's maintain law and order. This government is in for the long haul. The more we sanitize the space, the easier it will be for us to also get renewed mandates. If we repeat the same mistakes of the New Patriotic Party, what we are saying is that we are no different. But yet we know we are so different because the actions of our leaders are different. The actions of our leaders are with conscience, are with empathy, are with the spirit of uniting rather than disuniting. So let the institutions work and ensure that they bring those who breach the law and who breach public order, bring them to book.
Shamima, just as we were speaking, I tried to
Starting from all of the cold cases. I think that in terms of priority, we must go back to 2020 to 2024 and begin solving the problems right up to 2025.
But we have to deal with that now because that is fresh.
But you're not interested?
No, I'm interested. I'm very much interested.
Justice
I'm very much interested. Justice has to be delivered. Oh, no.
Is unjust.
Not so. But
So let's remind the police.
It's important.
Remind the police of the cold cases that are still undetermined.
Just as you say, your government has spoken on it. 2020, President Akufo-Addo also spoke on it, but it didn't bring the sort of result we were looking for. That's why we are saying that it has to go beyond the speech. People were on camera, we saw them. There has to be some arrests. As we speak, there has to be. Because Akufo-Addo spoke about it. Nothing happened. So we cannot take the speeches to say, yes, it's okay. It is not. And I'm sure you agree with me.
Lives were lost.
Exactly, yes.
Lives were lost. Right?
I agree, yes.
It took forever. Today, the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, who is speaking about it, did he have anything to say about it? Telling, should the Vice President actually should the Vice President come out and say, my brother, should the Vice President come out to say that they will remember? You will remember what? You have forgotten what you did?
Okay.
Have you forgotten? Remember what you did. Truly. That's the distinctive difference between the Vice President then, Bawumia, who is now wanting to be president, and even the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang, who could have used the opportunity to remind Ghanaians of the petitions before her, seeking justice for people who have been maimed, who have been killed through election violence.
Okay, I hear. I'm grateful. Let me bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Doc, your last words on this particular subject. What must we do going forward so that we don't have a recurrence of this?
There must be accountability, and the statute of limitations have not expired on 2020.
So,
I think those who killed and beat people and others should be brought to account. And we should do the same thing to those doing that now. And I want to add a caution to the country. When a nation allows its official institutions and agencies to be mobilized in pursuit of the private vendettas of individuals or groups, that country is in trouble. And I think we are on the path to doing that. We do these things and we justify them. I have already condemned Bawumia. I condemned Akufo-Addo's silence. But we have a president now, and I'm just saying that what happened at Ayawaso Wugon, as well as what happened at Ablekuma that we witnessed, is not consistent with the nation that was offering prayers for how good God has been to us, because here on earth, God's work is our own. So the work of building peace in fulfillment of God's word is our work, and it should be led by the president who led the National Day of Prayer.
Grateful to you, Dr. Afrikani. But do stay with me. Okay, Shamima says they won't disappoint.
No,
Shamima,
yeah.
so you said you came here with something. Now you wanted to talk about the way forward. What we must do? Maybe you leave that with us, and then we can.
You've already mentioned it. The way forward is that we must move away from entrenching impunity. There is a science to impunity beyond the sentiment, and if we don't build the institutions to respond adequately and be strengthened, we would have these conversations to no end. Yeah. And one of those is that, again, please, the institutions cloaked with powers to bring about justice and to mediate in affairs should do their professional best, you know, and that includes the Ghana Police Service, as we always continue, even the Army, because sometimes when the Army comes into some of these joint issues, they can also exhibit disproportionate force. Okay. The Electoral Commission, political parties cannot also escape, you know, blame and responsibility. They also have to build stronger political institutions so that we can all build this country. 33 years, we've done well, I keep saying, because we must look at how far we have come and then build better. And we truly need to build better. And again, to build better means we should all be doing right, including the media, my dear brother. The media must also sometimes do more than say, he said, she said.
Oh, and you know we do more than that.
The fullest picture and conclude based on the statistics, on the face of it. I say this also because even with this partisanship, if you can just give me 1 minute, the tone of the divisiveness of our partisan politics. I'm saying that if you take Jerry John Kufuor, who is today lamenting of being marginalized by his own, it is a very sad story. Listening to the hurt in former President Kufuor, and that's what NPP people do, and they say they can't learn. You can't even treat your founding member, the man who brought you from the wilderness to power, with the modicum of respect to include him. That's why sometimes wisdom has escaped the camp of the New Patriotic Party.
I'm grateful, Shamima. Thank you.
So, well,
thank you very much.
Just, if you look at the era of that time,
I have to
Mills.
I have to move on.
Shamima, you know, where he said he was father for all.
I'm
to
grateful.
John Muhammad chapter 1. Anytime we make progress, NPP takes us back
is doing what
with their vindictive politics.
Shamima was like deputy government spokesperson.
Serious, you didn't ask me about it.
Anyway, we'll take a break. We'll be back to talk about what President Trump is now trying to do with Africa. Stay with us here.